Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 221, The Sensual Test, Maria's Probing. Oni-chan, are you alright? Mio asked, her voice filled with concern. She had finally recovered from her shock and carefully examined Roy, relieved to find that he was unharmed. Mio, what are you talking about? Of course, I'm alright. Let's go home, Roy replied casually. Mio and Maria were stunned. But Oni-chan, there was a stray demon behind you. Behind me? Roy turned around and looked. There's nothing there. Mio and Maria exchanged glances. Roy didn't seem to be faking it. Had he really not noticed the stray demon's attack? Come on, it's getting late. Let's go, Roy said, taking their hands and leading them away before they could question him further. The two girls were puzzled as they walked home. Alright, I'll go make dinner. Be good, okay? Roy said, patting their heads before heading to the kitchen. Maria, who do you think Oni-chan really is? Mio asked once Roy was gone. I don't know, but he's definitely not an average human, Maria replied, thinking about the events of the day. Not an average human? Then why did he fall for your charm spell? That. Maria didn't have an answer. It doesn't matter who he is, as long as he's still the same kind Oni-chan, Mio declared, crossing her arms. She decided not to dwell on it. Maria, however, remained deep in thought. She couldn't figure out Roy's true identity. She decided to report this to Zulgier later. Why don't we test him, she suddenly suggested. Test him? Isn't that a bit risky? Mio hesitated. Don't worry, I'll make sure he doesn't get angry, Maria assured her with a mischievous grin. She had a plan. Unbeknownst to them, Roy had overheard their conversation. Dinner's ready. Go wash your hands, he called out from the kitchen. It smells so good. Mio and Maria exclaimed, already waiting at the table with their hands washed. Roy chuckled, seeing their eager expressions. Dig in. Itadakimasu. They started eating with gusto. This is delicious. So flavorful. Mio and Maria couldn't stop praising his cooking. Roy was amused. Soon, they finished their meal and went to wash the dishes. Roy was about to take a bath when Maria stopped him. Let me give you a massage, Oni-chan, she offered with a sweet smile, gently massaging his shoulders. It felt quite good. A while later, Maria watched Mio enter the bathroom and smirked. Oni-chan, go take a bath. I've prepared everything for you, she said, handing him a change of clothes and pushing him towards the bathroom. Roy knew she was up to something. But he wasn't going to back down. He entered the bathroom confidently. As expected, Mio was already in the shower. Her face turned bright red when she saw him, and she let out a yelp. Ah! Oni-chan, why are you here? Roy calmly admired her figure and replied, Maria told me to come in and take a bath. The bathroom is big enough for both of us. Besides, we used to bathe together when we were younger, remember? He started to undress. Mio gritted her teeth. So this was Maria's test. But seeing Roy's naked body, her face turned even redder. Roy continued showering as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Mio, can you wash my back? He asked, turning to her. Huh? Oh, okay. Mio was flustered, but she still shyly started washing his back. After their bath, Mio stormed into Maria's room. Maria, is this what you meant by test? You have some explaining to do, she demanded, her hands on her hips. It was a good test, wasn't it? If Onii-chan wasn't an average human, he would have noticed you in the bathroom, Maria replied with an awkward laugh. But he still came in. So, he didn't notice me? Well, maybe. Maria had initially intended it as a prank. There was no real point to this test. Maria! Mio glared at her, realizing what she had done. Mio-sama, I'm going to check for stray demons, Maria said, quickly escaping the room. Mio sighed, watching Maria flee. But there was no point in dwelling on it now. She blushed, remembering that Roy had seen her naked. Meanwhile, Maria was puzzled. She had searched the entire perimeter of the house but couldn't find any stray demons. Yesterday, she hadn't found any either, but she had assumed they were just not around at that moment. But today, they had encountered stray demons on their way home from school. Yet, there were none around the house now. This was strange. After pondering for a while, she decided to report this to Zalgier. Zalgier, upon hearing this, became interested in Roy. He sent a few artificial humans to investigate. Maria felt guilty, but she had no choice. Zalgier was holding her mother hostage. To ensure her mother's safety, she had to obey his orders. However, she didn't realize that Roy was watching her every move. Zalgier, huh? If you weren't still useful, you would have been dead already, Roy muttered with a smirk, observing Maria from the window. He didn't care much about Zalgier. But tonight would be a sleepless night. After receiving Zalgier's orders, several stray demons and artificial humans headed towards Roy's house. The barrier Roy had set up could only block auras. It wasn't very effective against targeted attacks. As expected, in the middle of the night, several stray demons, controlled by the artificial humans, arrived at the house. These artificial humans were magical beings created by Zalgier, modeled after his lovers. They had no will of their own, just mindless tools. Mio, who had just fallen asleep, suddenly sensed the presence of stray demons and woke up with a start. Stray demons? She rushed out of bed and went to Maria's room. Mio-sama, you felt it too, didn't you? Maria said. She had been waiting for them. Yes. We have to lure them away. We can't fight here, Mio said, worried about waking Roy. Okay. Maria nodded. Zalgier had sent these demons to test Roy. They couldn't interfere with his plan. They left the house. Several stray demons followed them. Mio smiled and led the demons to a deserted area to fight them. After defeating the last stray demon, Mio sighed in relief. But then, her expression changed. The number of stray demons seemed off. There should have been more, based on the aura she had sensed earlier. Something's wrong. Onii-chan is in danger. Maria, let's go. Mio grabbed Maria's hand and ran back towards the house. They soon reached the house. Seeing that it was still intact, Mio sighed in relief. It seems I was worried for nothing, she said to Maria. Yeah. Maria replied, but she was confused. There should have been stray demons and artificial humans attacking Roy. But there were no signs of a battle. Stray demons weren't known for their gentleness. The house should have been damaged. But it was perfectly fine. What was going on? They returned to their room, but nothing seemed out of place. Mio cautiously opened the door to Roy's room and peeked inside. Roy was sleeping peacefully. She closed the door and sighed in relief. It seems I was overthinking it. We must have lured all the stray demons away, she said. I guess so, Maria replied, though she was still suspicious. Let's get some rest. There shouldn't be any more stray demons tonight, Mio said, yawning and returning to her room. Maria, however, reported the situation to Zalgier. Zalgier, realizing that the demons and artificial humans he had sent hadn't returned, frowned. This Roy was more mysterious than he had anticipated. But he still didn't think much of it. He assumed Roy was just a human with some special abilities. He then gave Maria another order, which she reluctantly accepted. Chapter 222, Mio Naru's and Maria's confession, forming a contract. The next morning, Roy woke up to find Mio sleeping beside him. She must have come in during the night, worried about him. Her crimson hair looked radiant in the sunlight, reminding him of Rias. The only difference was that Mio was still a bit childish. Roy gently stroked her hair, then got out of bed to prepare breakfast. To his surprise, Maria was already up and about, preparing breakfast in the kitchen. "Good morning, Maria," Roy greeted her with a smile. "Morning, Oni-chan." "I'll take care of breakfast," Maria replied, turning around with a spatula in her hand. "Thanks," Roy said with a nod. Mio soon woke up and panicked when she didn't find Roy beside her. She rushed out of the room, still half-dressed, only to find Roy sitting in the living room. "Good morning, Mio," Roy chuckled, amused by her flustered appearance. "Oni-chan." Mio breathed a sigh of relief, then blushed and scurried back to her room to get dressed. After breakfast, the three of them went to school. "Good morning, Roy-san," Yuki Nanaka greeted him with a neutral expression as he entered the classroom. She studied him intently, as if trying to see through his disguise. As the Hero Clan's representative tasked with monitoring Mio, she had followed them last night. She had witnessed the stray demon attack and Roy's effortless defense. She tried to investigate his background but couldn't find anything useful. "Good morning, Nanaka-san," Roy replied with a smile. Yahiro Takigawa, sitting nearby, remained silent, his eyes fixed on Roy. He was also curious about Roy's identity after yesterday's failed attempt to dispel the charm spell. During lunch break, Maria pulled Mio aside. "Mio-sama, I have something to tell you." "What is it, Maria?" Mio asked. "I think it's time we tell Oni-chan the truth about our identities," Maria declared. "What? Why?" Mio was surprised. "It's not fair to him to keep deceiving him. We should be honest," Maria explained. But. Mio hesitated. What if Roy rejected them after learning the truth? "Mio-sama, he'll find out eventually." "It's better to tell him now," Maria insisted. "If he truly cares about you, he won't mind having a demon and a succubus as his little sisters." Mio's heart wavered. She also didn't want to keep deceiving Roy with the charm spell. She was constantly worried that he would discover the truth and abandon them. "All right, Maria, I agree," Mio finally said with a nod. "Great." Maria beamed, but her true intentions remained hidden. That night, after dinner, Mio and Maria sat down with Roy in the living room. "Mio, is there something you want to tell me?" Roy asked with a smile, gently patting her head. Mio blushed, fidgeting with her fingers. "Oni-chan. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Maria, growing impatient, decided to take action. "Let me do it," she exclaimed, then dispelled the charm spell on Roy. However, Roy hadn't been under any spell. He had simply been pretending. So, he remained the same, his expression unchanged. "Oni-chan?" Mio asked cautiously. "Yes, Mio?" "What's wrong?" Roy replied with a gentle smile. "You weren't affected by the magic?" Mio asked in surprise. "Magic? What magic?" Roy feigned ignorance. "My magic didn't work on you, Oni-chan?" Maria also exclaimed in disbelief. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I haven't been affected by anything," Roy said with a shrug. "But, when we first came here..." Mio was confused. Maria had used her charm spell on him that day. The first day? "Oh, that's because Maria said you would be my little sisters. And I've always wanted cute little sisters, so I played along," Roy explained. "Ha?" Mio and Maria stared at each other in stunned silence. Roy hadn't been under Maria's spell at all. He had been acting with them all along. Mio wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. She had been calling him Oni-chan and acting like his little sister all this time. How embarrassing. After the initial embarrassment subsided, Mio became worried. "Oni-chan, What about you? Heh, as long as you don't mind, Mio, I'll always treat you as my little sister, Roy replied with a smile, gently stroking her head. Mio blushed, her ruby eyes sparkling with gratitude. What about me, Oniai-chan? Maria chimed in, feeling a pang of envy. The same goes for you, Maria. I'll always be your big brother, Roy reassured her, also patting her head. Oniai-chan is so kind. Maria exclaimed, snuggling against him. Mio puffed out her cheeks, feeling a bit jealous. By the way, Oniai-chan, we have something to tell you, Maria said, remembering their mission. What is it, Maria? Roy asked with a smile. Mio looked at him nervously, wondering how he would react to the truth about their magic. We're not actually humans, Maria declared, stepping in front of Roy. A bright light enveloped her, and she transformed from a cute and innocent girl into a seductive succubus. Although Maria was still petite, her charm as a succubus was undeniable. Even Roy was momentarily stunned by her beauty, but then he frowned. Maria, you look lovely, but you should only dress like this at home. It's not appropriate to show this much skin in public, he chided. Maria was taken aback. He was worried about her being seen by others after she had transformed into a succubus? And this was her battle attire. Roy, aren't you curious about magic? Mio asked, surprised by his reaction. Of course I am. But you'll tell me eventually, won't you? Roy replied with a chuckle. Actually, Maria and I aren't human. She's a succubus, and I'm a demon, Mio confessed, her body glowing with a red light as she activated her magic. Her hair flowed in a non-existent breeze, giving her a mysterious and noble aura. Mio, you're beautiful, Roy complimented with a smile. Thank you. Mio blushed. Oniai-chan, you're focusing on the wrong thing. I'm a succubus. Maria exclaimed, approaching Roy and pressing herself against him. Although she was petite, her charm as a succubus was potent. Most men wouldn't be able to resist her advances. I know. So, he asked with a shrug and a smirk. Ugh. Maria was speechless. Oniai-chan, do you already know about the demons? Mio asked curiously. Not really. Perhaps I'm just very accepting, Roy replied vaguely. Mio looked at him skeptically. Mio-sama, there's another possibility, Maria said thoughtfully. What? He might be a human with powerful magic potential, Maria explained. In this world, humans could also possess magical talent. So, Maria theorized that Roy has a huge magical potential. That would explain why he was unharmed by the stray demon's attack. Is that so? Mio asked, still unsure. There's no other explanation. It must be true, Maria insisted with a nod. Mio, convinced by her words, nodded in agreement. Roy chuckled inwardly, watching them make assumptions. He didn't have to explain himself after all. Oniai-chan will protect his little sisters, right? Maria finally revealed their true motive. Of course, Roy replied without hesitation. Maria nodded in satisfaction. But Oniai-chan isn't strong enough to protect us yet. So, form a contract with Mio-sama. Mio was surprised. They hadn't discussed this. A contract? No problem, Roy agreed, recalling the rather suggestive contract-forming ritual in the original story. Mio-sama, you too. Maria said, turning to Mio. But... Mio hesitated. Forming a servant contract with her brother felt disrespectful. Mio-sama, don't hesitate. Oniai-chan has great magical potential. If we teach him some magic, he'll be able to protect us, Maria explained. Maria is right, Mio. Make a contract with me, Roy urged with a smile. Of course, he wasn't going to become anyone's servant. But in the original story, Maria had tricked Mio into becoming the servant instead. And whenever Mio had any bad thoughts, the contract would activate. She would act strangely and need to be punished to return to normal. Roy was quite intrigued by this unique contract and its effects. Chapter 223, The Servant Contract, Mio Naru's Bashfulness. Mio hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Alright, Oniai-chan. I'll form a contract with you, she agreed. Maria, seeing that they had both agreed, grinned triumphantly. She began drawing a magic circle. As a succubus. The magic she used often had strange side effects. This particular contract magic circle, for example, would cause an uncontrollable desire for physical intimacy if the servant disobeyed their master's orders or felt guilty. The only way to alleviate this side effect was through, well, you know. Otherwise, it would persist indefinitely. Roy watched Maria prepare the magic circle with amusement. Oniai-chan, let me tell you about the demon realm, Mio offered, explaining the various factions and their relationships. Roy listened with interest. Mio's father was the previous demon lord, an incredibly powerful being. Although he was rumored to be dead, he had actually faked his death. Roy didn't know why he had done that. Maria's father was also the previous demon lord, making Mio and Maria half-sisters. Mio, with her exceptional talent and strength, surpassed all her peers and even some older demons. But the immense power inherited from her father was suppressing her own abilities. Roy found this rather ironic. The old demon lord hadn't made proper arrangements for his daughter before his death and had instead created problems for her. He chuckled and shook his head, then turned his attention back to Maria. Oniai-chan, Mio-sama, the contract magic circle is ready. We can begin now, Maria announced with a smile. Alright, let's start, Roy said, taking Mio to the center of the magic circle. Since this is Mio-sama's first time using contract magic, let me assist you, Maria offered, taking Mio's hand. Mio didn't refuse. Oniai-chan, all you have to do is kiss the magic circle that will appear on Mio-sama's arm, Maria explained to Roy. Okay, Roy replied with a nod. Maria activated the magic circle. But the magic circle didn't appear on Mio's arm. It appeared on Roy's arm instead. As expected, Maria had tricked them. She must have been following Zalgier's orders, and there was definitely some hidden motive behind this. Wait, Maria, what's going on? Mio exclaimed, confused and flustered as she saw the glowing magic circle on Roy's arm. Oh. That's strange. It seems I made a mistake somewhere, Maria replied with a feigned innocence. What do we do now? Mio asked, worried. Well, the magic has already been activated. We can't stop it now. How about Mio-sama kisses Oniai-chan's hand instead? Maria suggested with a mischievous grin. What? Mio blushed. She didn't mind becoming Roy's servant, but the thought of it made her incredibly shy. After all, she would have to obey her master unconditionally. She glanced at Roy, her face burning red. Mio-sama, hurry up. The magic circle on Oniai-chan's arm is about to disappear. If you don't kiss it in time, there might be consequences, Maria urged, noticing that the magic circle was flickering. Ah. Mio hesitated, her heart pounding. After a brief internal struggle, she finally made up her mind. She approached Roy and gently kissed the back of his hand. However, due to her hesitation, the magic circle had already vanished by the time her lips touched his skin. It's gone. Maria exclaimed in surprise. Mio froze, her body suddenly paralyzed. A purple collar with a heart-shaped pattern appeared around her neck. What's happening? She stammered, a strange sensation coursing through her body. She collapsed to the ground, her legs no longer able to support her. What's wrong? Roy asked, pretending to be concerned, though he was secretly thrilled. The curse has been activated, Maria explained. Curse? Roy asked, playing along. Ehe. Maria giggled nervously, then explained, the master-servant contract is meant to ensure the servant's loyalty. But because I used my magic, if the servant disobeys the master's orders, they'll become insatiable. Mio, lying on the floor, her face flushed and her body tingling, moaned, "Stop talking and help me." Even Roy couldn't help but gulp, seeing Mio's alluring state. "Don't worry, as long as you obey Master's orders, the curse will be lifted," Maria reassured her with a smile. Mio looked at Roy with pleading eyes. "Oni-chan, please help me." Roy couldn't refuse such a request. Ignoring Maria's presence, he began to discipline Mio. "Amazing!" Maria cheered from the sidelines, her face flushed with excitement. Roy was speechless. Not only was Maria not embarrassed, but she was actively cheering him on. It seemed he would have to discipline her as well. He couldn't let her keep leading him around by the nose. Within few minutes, Mio had climaxed 7 times, eventually passing out from exhaustion. Roy glared at Maria, who was still cheering. Maria, sensing his dangerous gaze, chuckled nervously. Oni-chan, I'll go back to my room and sleep now." She scurried away. Roy sighed and carried Mio to bed. The next morning, Roy woke up to find Mio staring at him with a love-struck expression. "Mio, what are you looking at?" "Oni-chan, I. Mio stammered, then buried her face in his chest, flustered. Roy chuckled. Mio was quite shy, it seemed. But although she could control her words, her body was honest. And due to the side effect of the contract, whenever Mio disobeyed her master's orders, she would experience a strange sensation. A purple, heart-shaped collar appeared around her neck. Mio moaned, her face turning crimson. "Mio, what's wrong?" Roy asked with a playful smirk. "Oni-chan." Mio, seeing his teasing expression, realized he was just messing with her. She pouted and snuggled closer. All right, I get it," Roy said, giving in to her adorable act. He spent the morning training her until Maria's calls finally forced them out of bed. During breakfast, Mio glared at Maria, who was smirking at her. If it weren't for Maria's messed up spell, she wouldn't be in this state. But it wasn't so bad either. She glanced at Roy and blushed. "Mio, I don't think we should let Maria tease you like this. How about we make her sign a contract with me too?" Roy suggested with a chuckle after breakfast, while Maria was cleaning up in the kitchen. Mio's eyes lit up. This was a perfect opportunity for revenge. "That's a great idea. I'll go talk to her. If she doesn't agree, humph," Mio declared with a mischievous grin. She went to the kitchen and told Maria about the plan. Maria froze, hearing Mio's words. She hadn't expected this. Although she was a succubus, she valued her chastity. Even Zulgier hadn't been able to sway her. She had used a special lock to protect herself. No one could take her first time without her consent. Maria actually had a more developed figure than Mio, but due to the lock, she appeared as a little girl. "But Mio-sama, the contract magic can only be activated during a full moon," Maria said with a nervous laugh. "Is that so?" Mio asked suspiciously. Of course, Maria insisted with a nod. "Fine. We'll just have to wait until next month then," Mio said, disappointed that she couldn't enact her revenge immediately. But she wasn't going to let Maria off the hook. The full moon had already passed. They would have to wait for the next one. Ugh. Maria's face fell. She reluctantly agreed. She had a month to come up with a plan. Roy, in the living room, overheard their conversation and chuckled. Maria wouldn't be able to escape now. At school. "Good morning, Nanaka-san," Roy greeted Yuki with a smile as he entered the classroom. Yuki frowned, seeing Roy and Mio holding hands. Chapter 224, Yuki Nanaka Bento, feeding Mio until she's full. Yuki couldn't explain why, but she didn't want Roy to get involved with Mio. However, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction of her wishes. Roy, seeing her silence, shrugged. It seemed that without a childhood friend-like relationship, it was indeed difficult to win her over. Especially with someone like Yuki, who was rather reserved. But to his surprise, Yuki invited him to lunch. "I'd like to invite you to have lunch with me, Roy-san." "I made you a bento," she said, offering him a beautifully prepared lunchbox. the entire class erupted in gasps and whispers. Yuki Nanaka, one of the school's beauties, had personally made a bento for him? The rumors about them were definitely true. The other students were filled with envy and jealousy. No, you can't. Oniai-chan is having lunch with me, Mio suddenly declared, clinging to Roy's arm and glaring at Yuki. Roy sighed. It seemed Mio was feeling threatened. He accepted the bento. If he didn't, Yuki probably wouldn't back down. Mio puffed out her cheeks, displeased. Mio, be a good girl, okay? Roy said gently, patting her head. Ugh, fine, Mio grumbled, still pouting, but she agreed. Please follow me, Yuki said to Roy, then left the classroom. Roy followed her, with Mio trailing behind them, eager to eavesdrop on their conversation. They arrived on the rooftop. Nanaka-san, what did you want to talk about? Roy asked, getting straight to the point. Yuki hesitated for a moment, then said, Roy-san, you probably don't know Mio-san's true identity, do you? Mio, hiding near the stairwell, thought, as expected, she brought Roy here to expose my identity. But we already told Oniai-chan the truth. There's nothing to worry about. I know. Mio told me last night, Roy replied calmly. Yuki was surprised. Mio Naruse had told him? Then you should know how dangerous it is to be with her, she said. Of course. But I'll protect Mio, Roy said with a confident smile. But you're just a human. It doesn't matter. Mio said I have magic potential, and she'll teach me magic. Yuki was surprised again. He had magic potential? Usually, those with magic potential were from special groups, like the Hero Clan's village. After a long silence, Yuki looked at Roy with a serious expression. Mio Naruse has inherited the power of a demon lord. She attracts stray demons constantly. If she poses a threat to humans, our Hero Clan will eliminate her. So, I hope we won't become enemies. I hope so too. But I won't let Mio get hurt, Roy replied with a confident grin. Yuki was puzzled by his calm demeanor. Most people would be panicking in this situation, but Roy seemed completely unfazed. She didn't dwell on it, though. After giving him a long look, she left the rooftop. She saw Mio eavesdropping but didn't say anything. Mio, however, was acting strangely. A purple collar appeared around her neck, and she started rubbing her legs together, her breathing becoming erratic. Roy instantly recognized the signs. The curse was acting up again. Mio, what's wrong? He asked playfully, approaching her. Mio had become insecure after he readily agreed to Yuki's invitation. But after hearing their conversation, she was touched. However, she also felt guilty for doubting him. And so, the succubus curse activated. Oniai-chan, quickly. Mio pleaded, her face flushed. Quickly what? Roy teased, gently poking her cheek. Mio let out a yelp and climaxed. The curse made her incredibly sensitive. Roy, seeing her reaction, stopped teasing her and took care of her. Over the next few days, Yuki didn't approach Roy again, but he knew she was still watching them from the shadows. Mio and Maria began teaching Roy magic. With his magic authority, Roy could be considered a god of magic. But now, he was being taught magic by others. It was a bit ironic. But he enjoyed spending time with Mio. Her curse would activate at random moments, such as in the bathroom, the school's changing room, the nurse's office, the restroom, and even the empty classroom after school. They had trained in various locations. It was quite exciting. Tonight, Mio and Maria were taking Roy to practice magic. They had been teaching him the basics, and it was time for him to try casting a spell. They went to a deserted forest, a perfect location for practicing magic without being disturbed. Oniai-chan, do you remember the magic bullet spell we taught you? Maria asked. Yes, I remember it well, Roy replied with a smile and a nod. The magic bullet was a basic spell. Roy had learned it after hearing it just once. It was easy for him. Then try casting it, Oniai-chan. Don't worry, no one will disturb us here, Maria said with a grin. Mio also looked at him expectantly. All right. Roy nodded. He extended his hand, and a fist-sized ball of magical energy formed in his palm. Wow! You succeeded on your first try. Mio and Maria cheered, hugging each other excitedly. Roy, however, simply smirked. Did I? I wonder how powerful it is. Yes, we haven't tested its power yet. If it's too weak, it won't be effective against stray demons, Maria said, pointing at a 10-meter-tall boulder. Oni-chan, try hitting that boulder, Mio suggested. Okay. Roy casually tossed the magic bullet towards the boulder. The white ball of energy glowed like a light bulb as it slowly flew towards the boulder. As it neared the boulder, the light suddenly vanished. Mio and Maria were confused. It failed? It seems the power is lacking. But don't be discouraged, Oni-chan. You succeeded on your first try. They tried to comfort him, much to Roy's amusement. It's not over yet. Look, Roy said, pointing at the boulder. Mio and Maria turned to look. Suddenly, several beams of light shot out from the seemingly extinguished magic bullet, and it exploded. Boom! Ah! Mio and Maria screamed, shielding their eyes from the blinding light and instinctively grabbing Roy's arms. The ground shook violently. The forest was filled with the sounds of startled birds and insects. After a while, the light subsided. Mio and Maria opened their eyes. They stared at the scene in stunned silence. Where the boulder had been, there was now a crater over 10 meters wide. The boulder itself was completely gone. This. Maria was speechless. Even with all her power, she couldn't create a magic bullet with this destructive force. Amazing. Mio was also stunned. This was just a basic magic bullet. How powerful would his stronger spells be? She couldn't imagine. Roy chuckled inwardly, seeing their shocked expressions. He could create thousands of these magic bullets in an instant. When playing bullet hell games with Toru, Kanna, and the others, magic bullet was just a basic attack. Oni-chan, you're so incredible! Mio exclaimed, hugging him tightly. Heh, you don't even know the half of it, Roy teased. Mio blushed. Roy was indeed incredible in many ways. She used to worry about him not being able to keep up with her, as he was just a human, and she was a demon. But after that one lesson where she had been trained until she fainted, she no longer had such concerns. This is bad, Oni-chan, Mio-sama. Someone must have noticed the commotion. We should leave. Maria suddenly exclaimed. She had initially thought that causing a scene in this deserted forest wouldn't be a problem, but Roy's magic bullet had caused an earthquake. Such a powerful display of magic would definitely attract stray demons or other factions. Alright, let's go back, Roy agreed. He wasn't that interested in practicing magic anyway. They quickly left the forest. As expected, soon after they left, several people arrived to investigate the scene. Chapter 225, The Power of a Demon Lord is a Burden, meeting Chisato Hasegawa. After Roy and the girls left, a group of teenagers arrived at the scene of the explosion. They examined the large crater with serious expressions. What happened here? How did this crater appear? I don't know. There are traces of magic, but no signs of a battle. Was it caused by someone practicing magic? Yuki, you're monitoring the Demon Lord's successor. Have you noticed anything unusual lately? This group was also from the Hero clan, and the girl they addressed was Yuki Nanaka. Mio Naru's recently acquired an older brother. Nothing else out of the ordinary, Yuki replied calmly. A brother, one of the boys scoffed. We should report this to the village. And the village elders seem to have a negative view of the Demon Lord's successor. They might order us to eliminate her soon, another boy with short blonde hair said with a frown. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to follow orders, a third boy shrugged. Unbeknownst to them, a masked figure was watching them from a nearby tree. It was Yahiro Takigawa. He smirked, listening to their conversation. "Roy, you're more than you appear to be," he muttered. He had witnessed Roy's magic bullet and was shocked by its destructive power. It was unbelievable that an average magic bullet could be so powerful. This further confirmed his suspicions about Roy. He decided to test Roy again. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria were even more enthusiastic about teaching Roy magic. If an average magic bullet could be so powerful, how strong would his more advanced spells be? One day at school, Mio suddenly felt unwell, and Roy took her to the nurse's office. The school nurse was Chisato Hasegawa, a mature and beautiful woman. She was also a Furia, a former high-ranking god amongst the 10 gods of the divine realm. "Hasegawa-sensei, is Mio alright?" Roy asked. He was surprised that Mio could get sick. It didn't seem logical. Chisato chuckled and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "She's fine. It's just her time of the month." Oh. Roy was relieved. He hadn't expected Mio to be too embarrassed to tell him about it. "So, don't do anything naughty to her during this time, okay?" Chisato warned, playfully poking Roy's forehead. Roy's face twitched. He was embarrassed that she had seen through him. "Ahem. I understand, Hasegawa-sensei," he replied awkwardly. "Good." Chisato smiled and left the room. Roy sighed. That was embarrassing. "Mio, why didn't you tell me?" he asked, turning to Mio. Mio blushed and looked away. How could she tell him something like that? Roy turned to get her a glass of water. But Mio grabbed his arm. "Don't go," she pleaded. "Don't worry, I'm not leaving." "I'm just getting you some water," Roy reassured her, gently patting her head. Mio relaxed. She took the glass of water he offered and sipped it, her face still flushed. She began hesitantly. "What is it, Mio?" Roy asked, looking at her curiously. "What if the curse activates?" she asked in a small voice. Roy almost laughed. Did she think the curse meant she had to do that with him? He leaned closer and whispered in her ear, "Don't worry, there's another place we can do it." "What?" Mio gasped, her face turning crimson. They stayed in the nurse's office for a while longer until Mio felt better. It was already evening when they finally left. Just as they stepped out of the office, Maria came running towards them. "Maria, what's wrong?" Mio asked, surprised by her panicked expression. "Mio-sama, it's terrible. There are stray demons surrounding the school," Maria exclaimed. Mio frowned. "Let's go check it out," Roy suggested. He had noticed Yuki Nanaka fighting the stray demons outside. And more stray demons were gathering. There were already over 20 of them, and their numbers were still increasing. Mio and Maria nodded in agreement. They couldn't run away now that the stray demons had surrounded the school. And they couldn't let the demons harm the students who would be coming to school tomorrow. They reached the school grounds and saw Yuki battling the stray demons. She was wearing armor on her arms and legs and wielding a sharp sword. Her usually calm and collected demeanor was replaced by a fierce determination. Even Roy was impressed. "Let's help her," Mio said. "If we don't stop these stray demons, they'll destroy the school." "All right." Maria agreed, transforming into her succubus battle form. She charged into the fray, punching a stray demon and shattering it. Yuki glanced at her but didn't say anything. Now wasn't the time for arguments. They had to focus on defeating the stray demons. As a member of the hero clan, her duty was not only to monitor Mio but also to protect humans. Seeing so many stray demons, she immediately suspected Mio. Only the demon lord's successor could attract so many demons. "Oni-chan, let's help too." "But remember what I told you, don't use too much magic," Mio reminded Roy. She didn't want him to accidentally destroy the school, like he had done with the magic bullet in the forest. "Don't worry, I can control my magic now," Roy assured her with a sigh. He was a bit annoyed that his control over magic was being questioned. But as someone with the magic authority, he could indeed control his power perfectly. Okay, then let's go. Mio nodded, then raised her hand, summoning several magic circles in the air. The magic circles glowed, and several stray demons were instantly incinerated. It seemed she was trying to show off in front of Roy. Roy chuckled, then waved his hand, creating countless magic bullets behind him. The magic bullets swarmed towards the remaining stray demons. Bang! 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 After a series of explosions, all the stray demons were eliminated. Mio, Maria, and even Yuki were stunned. Yahiro Takegawa, who had been watching from the shadows, was also shocked. He had always thought highly of Roy, but he had still underestimated him. To be able to wipe out so many stray demons in an instant, even he couldn't do that. But seeing Roy's nonchalant expression, his suspicion grew. There was another person watching the battle from the window of a classroom in the school building. It was Chisato Hasegawa. Witnessing Roy's overwhelming power, she couldn't help but adjust her glasses, a glint of interest in her eyes. "Roy, you're quite interesting," she muttered with a smirk. The battle wasn't over yet. More stray demons appeared as soon as the previous ones were defeated. And Yahiro Takegawa, wearing his mask, emerged from the shadows. Of course, Roy knew that this was just a puppet controlled by the real Yahiro. Yahiro wouldn't risk exposing himself directly. "Who are you?" Mio demanded, glaring at the masked figure. Maria and Yuki also looked at him warily. "Ha ha, successor of the Demon Lord. You should know that your demonic power constantly attracts stray demons. Why don't you just hand it over?" Yahiro's voice was distorted by the mask, sounding strange and metallic. "Hey! You're the one who brought these stray demons here. Don't try to frame Mio-sama," Maria retorted. Yuki frowned. She had initially assumed that Mio was responsible for attracting the stray demons. But it seemed that wasn't the case. Mio also glared at Yahiro angrily. "Ha ha, you're wrong. Both the stray demons and I were attracted by the Demon Lord's power," Yahiro cackled. They were speechless. He was right. It's not just me. More and more powerful and evil beings will come for you. So, hand over the Demon Lord's power. Or those around you will eventually get hurt, Yahiro continued. Mio lowered her head, her resolve wavering. He was right. What would she do if she encountered someone she couldn't defeat? The thought of Roy getting hurt, or even killed, terrified her. She began, but Roy interrupted her. "Leave this to me," he said gently, patting her head. Mio looked at him with her big, innocent eyes, then nodded. Roy was actually in favor of Mio giving up the Demon Lord's power. She already possessed great potential and strength. Yahiro was just a boy her age. If it weren't for the burden of the Demon Lord's power, she could easily defeat him. The Demon Lord's power was currently hindering her growth. Chapter 226, Provocation from the Hero Clan, taking advantage of Kurumi Nanaka. Roy stepped forward and sneered at Yahiro. "The Demon Lord's power isn't a toy for you to covet." An invisible pressure descended upon them, and countless magic bullets materialized behind Roy. Yahiro's eyes widened in shock and fear. He had seen Roy use this attack before and assumed he had exhausted his magic power. That's why he had appeared to force Mio to surrender the Demon Lord's power. But Roy was still capable of unleashing another powerful attack. This was beyond his expectations. Before he could react, the magic bullets engulfed him. When the dust settled, all the stray demons and Yahiro's puppet were gone. Mio and Maria were stunned. Was this godlike being their Oni-chan? But Mio didn't feel any fear or estrangement. She had already entrusted everything to Roy. Yahiro, hiding in the shadows, was pale with fear. Although the one who had been destroyed was just a puppet, he could still feel the terror of those magic bullets. He glanced at Roy, who remained calm and composed, then turned and fled without hesitation. Roy didn't bother pursuing him. Yahiro might still be useful. Meanwhile, Chisato Hasegawa, observing the scene from the rooftop, was also shocked. According to her investigation, Roy was just an average human with some magic potential. But his power had grown tremendously in just a few days. If she hadn't sensed any other power within him, she would have suspected that he was some powerful god in disguise. "Oni-chan, are you alright?" Mio asked worriedly, clinging to Roy. "I'm fine. I could go another 300 rounds with you, Mio," Roy teased, hugging her back. "No!" Mio protested, burying her face in his chest. But she had forgotten that disobeying her master's orders would activate the curse. As soon as she finished her sentence, the purple collar reappeared around her neck, and she moaned. Mio, you say you don't want to?" Roy chuckled, then added with a suggestive grin, "Mio, you're on your period, right? Then I'll just have to take the back door." Mio was speechless. "Maria, let's go home," Roy said, taking Mio's hand. "Okay," Maria replied, then looked at Roy's back with a thoughtful expression. She was considering telling him everything. Roy's performance today had been incredible. He had become so powerful after just a few days of learning magic. If she asked for his help, would he agree? But she held back. Although Roy was strong, he was still no match for a demon cadre like Salgier. However, she couldn't help but see Roy as a glimmer of hope for saving her mother. The next few days were peaceful. Roy, Mio, and Maria went to school together as usual. But today was different. Due to Mio's presence, the school was attacked by a large number of stray demons, disrupting the lives of ordinary students. The hero clan finally decided to eliminate Mio. And the demon faction, disappointed with Yahiro's incompetence, sent a new representative to monitor Mio. As Roy and the girls were leaving school that day, they were intercepted by a group of 4 from the hero clan. "Mio Naruse, you've become a threat to humans. The hero clan has decided to eliminate you. Surrender now," a young man with blonde hair named Takashi Hayes declared. "Roy-san, I advise you to leave Mio-san. You can't protect her this time," Yuki also said. After spending time with him, she had developed some feelings for Roy. "Yuki, don't bother. He's just an idiot who's been seduced by a succubus," another young man named Kyoichi Shiba scoffed. "You're right, Oni-chan. He's not worth it. If he tries to interfere with our mission, we'll just have to kill him," a petite girl with blue hair added. This was Kurumi Nanaka, Yuki's younger sister. Yuki, hearing their words, remained silent. Mio and Maria frowned. It seemed a battle was unavoidable. "Of course, we won't fight here. We'll set up a barrier in an empty field south of here tomorrow. We expect you to be there," Takashi said arrogantly, then turned to leave. "Heh, I don't think that will be necessary," Roy chuckled, looking at them as if they were clowns. "What?" Takashi turned back, confused. "I said we can settle this here and now," Roy repeated. There was no one else around. This was the perfect place to deal with them. He didn't want to waste time. Takashi and the others scowled. "Are you underestimating us?" Kurumi demanded angrily. "You'll pay for your arrogance," Takashi sneered. "Oni-chan." Mio and Maria looked at him worriedly. "Don't worry, it won't take long. We have a movie to watch tomorrow, remember?" "I don't want to miss our date because of these guys," Roy reassured them with a smile. Takashi and the others couldn't stand his arrogance any longer. Kurumi stepped forward. "You overconfident fool. I'll make you regret that," she declared. "Oh, really?" Roy chuckled, then turned to Yuki. "Is she your sister?" Yuki hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "Then I'll go easy on her." Kurumi's face turned red with anger. "I don't need my sister's help. I can defeat you myself." "Is that so? Then come at me," Roy challenged, gesturing for her to attack. "If we fight here, the village elders will be furious," Kyoichi Shiba muttered with a sigh. But Kurumi didn't care. She charged at Roy, her body surrounded by swirling winds. She was a master of wind magic. A small tornado formed and rushed towards Roy. Wind magic, huh? I can do that too, Roy said with a smirk, snapping his fingers. A tornado several times larger than Kurumi's appeared before him. The street was filled with howling winds, and people fled in panic. How? Kurumi gasped, shocked by the power of Roy's magic. But she quickly regained her composure. Don't underestimate me, she shouted, focusing her magic power. She created a tornado equal in size to Roy's. The two tornadoes clashed, tearing at the surroundings. Eventually, they cancelled each other out. After all, they were just magic, not real tornadoes. Kurumi sighed in relief. Humph, you're not so tough, she scoffed, convinced that Roy had been bluffing. Really? Roy smirked, then waved his hand again. For even more powerful tornadoes appeared, heading towards Takashi and the others. He wasn't going to waste any more time. He would defeat them all at once. What? Takashi was stunned. He hadn't expected Roy to attack all four of them simultaneously. Seeing the power of the tornadoes, his expression turned grim. Even they had to be careful against magic of this caliber. But no matter how careful they were, it was useless. Even Takashi's Byako, his divine beast, couldn't withstand the force of the tornadoes. They were completely outmatched. Ah! Yuki and Kurumi were swept up into the air, screaming as they were tossed around by the wind. Roy, seeing this, dispelled two of the tornadoes and gently lowered the girls to the ground. But they lost their balance and fell again, screaming. Roy caught them, one in each arm. They blinked, surprised that they hadn't hit the ground. They looked up and saw Roy holding them, their faces flushing as they met his gaze. Ah! Kurumi suddenly yelped and jumped out of his arms, her face red with embarrassment. Kurumi, what's wrong? Yuki asked, confused. Pervert! Kurumi shouted at Roy. Ahem, sorry, Roy coughed awkwardly. He had accidentally placed his hands in the wrong places when he caught them. Yuki pulled Kurumi behind her, glaring at Roy suspiciously. Roy shrugged helplessly. Takashi and Kyochi, who had also been caught by the tornadoes, were finally released. They crashed to the ground with a thud. Yuki, seeing that they were defeated, knew their mission had failed. Roy was far stronger than they had imagined. They were no match for him. Nanaka-san, take them and leave. And don't come back to cause trouble again. Otherwise, Roy warned. I understand, Yuki replied, her voice trembling slightly as she met his gaze. She knew he was serious. She then left with Takashi and the others. Ori-chan is powerful. Mio and Maria exclaimed, throwing their arms around him in admiration. Chapter 227. Maria's little scheme, forming a contract with Yuki, Nanaka and Maria. After dealing with the hero clan, Roy and the girls were heading home when they encountered another problem. Zulgier had sent a new demon, Valga, to monitor Mio after Yahiro's failure. Boom! The wall at the entrance of the alley crumbled as a muscular, bald figure emerged from the dust cloud. Ha, there you are. Let me see the power you inherited from the demon lord. Valga roared, throwing a punch at Roy, Mio, and Maria. A shockwave erupted. Look out! Maria and Mio cried, trying to pull Roy out of the way. But Roy didn't move. He simply raised his hand, creating a red magic circle that effortlessly blocked the attack. Mio and Maria sighed in relief. Oh? You blocked my punch? Who are you? Valga asked, surprised. Dead men tell no tales, Roy replied calmly, then summoned ice shards from the magic circle and launched them towards Valga. Valga didn't bother dodging. He thought they were just some ice shards. But before he could finish his sentence, his entire body was encased in ice. Crack! 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 Shatter! The ice exploded, and Valga's frozen body crumbled into dust. Mio and Maria stared at the scene in disbelief. They could sense his power growing steadily. He was becoming incredibly strong. Maria's eyes gleamed with a calculating light. Soon, she thought, he will be strong enough to help me rescue my mother. When that time comes, he'll definitely agree to help me, right? I have to be more proactive. The next morning, Roy woke up to find Maria snuggled against him. Maria, what are you doing? He asked, bewildered. Hee, I'm here to wake you up, Oni-chan. Maria giggled. Was this a freebie? Roy wondered. Well, he wasn't going to let this opportunity slip away. Wake me up, huh? Come here then. He pulled Maria closer and hugged her. Oni-chan, what are you doing? Maria asked, flustered. Usually, you should give your brother a good morning kiss when you wake him up, Roy asked rhetorically. Is that so? Of course it is. Maria knew that, of course. She was an expert in conquering, having played countless dating sims. She was just shy. Mio was still fast asleep, having stayed up late last night since it was the weekend. Seeing that Roy wouldn't let her go without a kiss, Maria reluctantly gave him her first kiss. But it was a small price to pay for her mother's freedom. Besides, after spending so much time with Roy, she had started to develop feelings for him. But when they finally parted, they saw Mio glaring at them with a furious expression. Maria, you traitor! I'll kill you 100 times, she shrieked, pouncing on Maria. Mio-sama, please spare me. Maria cried, surrendering as Mio tickled her mercilessly. They tumbled around playfully. In the following days, Roy and the girls continued their peaceful school life. But there was a new addition to their group now. Yuki Nanaka. It seemed that after their last encounter, Yuki's feelings towards Roy had changed. She had become quite fond of him. She even started competing with Mio for his attention. Roy's life was becoming increasingly lively. You're saying that Mio and Roy formed a contract? Yuki asked Maria, pulling her aside in an isolated corner of the school grounds. They were discussing Mio's power, and Maria had casually mentioned the contract. Yuki, intrigued by this magical contract, had an idea. That's right. Thanks to the contract, Oni-chan has become so much stronger. It's a win-win situation, Maria explained, shamelessly taking credit for Roy's increased power. Really? Yuki's eyes sparkled with interest. Yes, and the next full moon is approaching. That's the perfect time to form a contract, Maria added. Maria, I'm counting on you, Yuki said. Leave it to me. Maria grinned and puffed out her chest confidently. They had a plan. As the full moon approached, Maria's anticipation grew. She and Mio had been diligently teaching Roy all the magic they knew. They wanted him to become even stronger, given his exceptional talent. Maria even taught him her unique succubus magic. She had initially just wanted to see if he could learn it, but to her surprise, he mastered it instantly. She couldn't help but marvel at his monstrous talent. Finally, the night of the full moon arrived. Roy, Mio, Maria, and Yuki were gathered in the living room. Maria had already prepared the magic circle. So, who wants to go first? Roy asked with a playful grin, looking at Mio and Yuki. I'll go first, Yuki volunteered, her face slightly flushed. Maria sighed in relief. She was nervous. After all, forming a contract with Roy meant betraying Zalgier. If she didn't rescue her mother before Zalgier found out, she would be in trouble. She decided to confess everything to Roy later. For now, she focused on activating the contract magic. Yuki-san, after the contract is activated, you have to kiss the magic mark that appears on Oni-chan's arm, okay? Maria reminded her. Is Mio Naru's like that too? Yuki suddenly asked, her face flushed. No, she's not. That's why Mio-sama often acts indecently and begs Oni-chan for. Maria trailed off, unable to finish the sentence due to embarrassment. Yuki's face turned even redder. The magic mark has appeared, Roy announced, raising his arm to show a circular mark on his skin. Alright, Nanaka-san, quickly kiss the mark. Maria urged. No. Yuki refused. Ha? Maria was stunned. Why wouldn't she do it? Mio was also confused. She wasn't happy about Yuki becoming Roy's contractor too. Yuki glanced at Mio, then said, I want the same treatment as her. Maria and Mio were speechless. They hadn't expected that. Meanwhile, the magic mark on Roy's arm faded. Yuki suddenly collapsed. Roy quickly caught her. But there was no rush. He still had to deal with Maria. Maria, you too, he said. Eh? Maria fidgeted nervously. This. Don't worry, I can handle all three of you, Roy reassured her with a chuckle, patting her head. Maria blushed, then nodded. Okay. But I have something to tell you, Oniai-chan. Roy knew what she wanted to say. No matter what it is, I'll help you, Maria, he promised. Really? Maria's eyes lit up. With his promise, she no longer felt the need to rush. She activated the contract magic. Maria, the magic mark has appeared, Roy said, showing her the back of his hand. Actually, I also want the same treatment as Mio-sama, Maria confessed, glancing at Mio. Mio puffed out her cheeks. It wasn't like she had volunteered for this. Why was everyone comparing themselves to her? Although she was a bit jealous, she didn't stop them. She had already been conquered by Roy. Soon, Maria also had a purple collar around her neck. She swayed and almost fell, but Roy caught her just in time. He carried both of them to his room. Yuki was already dazed and out of it. Just as Roy was about to discipline her, Maria suddenly sat up, her face filled with determination. Maria, what's wrong? Roy asked, curious. Oniai-chan, wait a moment. Maria said, then focused her magic power. A key materialized in her hand and magically inserted itself into a keyhole on her collar. Click. The lock on her collar sprang open. Maria transformed from a petite girl into a mature young woman with a voluptuous figure. Even Mio was stunned by the sudden change. Oniai-chan. Maria purred, throwing herself into Roy's arms. Roy realized that the lock was a magic tool to protect her chastity. After all, Zulgier had tried to make her part of his harem. It seemed he could finally get rid of Zulgier and rescue Maria's mother. Roy didn't hesitate any longer. Chapter 228, This succubus is a bit much, the artificial demon, zest. The next morning, Roy stretched and disentangled himself from Mio and Yuki, who were clinging to him like koala bears. Maria was nowhere to be seen. She must be preparing breakfast in the kitchen. He got out of bed and went to the kitchen. As expected, Maria was busy cooking. Maria. You're up early, Roy commented, gently patting her head. He felt a pang of affection for her. After all, she had just become his woman last night. But he also couldn't help but admire her skills. As a succubus, she was a natural in bed, and her techniques were impressive. Even Roy, with his experience, was surprised. But no matter how skilled she was still no match for him. I wanted to make a delicious breakfast for Oniai-chan, Maria replied with a bright smile. Thank you for your hard work. But let me take over today, Roy said, taking the spatula from her. Really? Maria's eyes lit up. Roy's cooking was the best she had ever tasted. Of course, Roy confirmed with a nod. Yay! Maria cheered. But first, you have to lie down on the counter, Roy added with a mischievous grin. Maria was confused, but she complied. She lay down on the counter and looked at Roy expectantly. Like this? Yes, perfect. Roy nodded, then. Maria was stunned. She hadn't expected this. Roy, meanwhile, started asking her some questions. Now that he had conquered her, there was no need to keep pretending to be an average human. Playing the fool was fun occasionally, but it was time to get down to business. Maria, you said you had something to tell me, right? Ah, yes, that's right. What is it? Tell me, and I'll help you. It's about my mother. She was captured by Zul'jir, a cadre of the demon faction. And he's been threatening me. Maria finally confessed, her voice trembling. She revealed everything, her mission to spy on Mio, Zul'jir's plot. And she even climaxed twice during their conversation. I see. Don't worry, Maria. I'll definitely rescue your mother, Roy promised. Thank you, Oniai-chan. It's no problem. Just trust me. Roy easily agreed. Rescuing Maria's mother was a simple task for him. Soon, a delicious breakfast was ready. The aroma woke up Mio and Yuki. Wow! Oniai-chan made breakfast. This is great! Mio exclaimed excitedly. Even Yuki couldn't help but drool, despite not knowing what he had cooked. During breakfast, Roy told them about Maria's situation. Mio was initially upset that Maria had been spying on her, but she eventually forgave her after Roy explained everything. After all, Maria had been forced to do it, and she hadn't harmed Mio in any way. So, Maria, do you know where Zul'jir is? If we know his location, we can go rescue your mother, Roy asked. I'm sorry, Oniai-chan. I don't know where he is, or where my mother is being held, Maria replied sadly. Don't worry, we'll find a way, Roy reassured her, patting her head gently. Even if we knew his location, we can't just barge in there, Yuki said with a frown. Although she knew Roy was powerful, Zul'jir was a demon cadre and had hostages. Rescuing Maria's mother wouldn't be easy. Mio agreed. Even if they could defeat Zul'jir, he must have many subordinates. It would be difficult for them to rescue Maria's mother with just the 4 of them. Roy, hearing their concerns, chuckled. Don't worry. Once we find Zul'jir's base, I'll find a way to rescue the hostages. Trust me. The girls nodded, convinced by his confidence. Finding Zul'jir's base was easy. Yahiro Takigawa, the demon sent to monitor Mio, would definitely know its location. They just had to ask him. After breakfast, they went to school. Yahiro Takigawa, come with me, Roy said, calling him out of the classroom. Yahiro was surprised. He rarely interacted with Roy, and Roy had never paid much attention to him. Why was he calling him out now? Had his identity been exposed? He hesitantly followed Roy, Mio, and the others to the rooftop. The rooftop, where they had fought before, had a nice view. Yahiro Takigawa, do you know why you're still alive? Roy asked, his back turned towards Yahiro as he looked at the scenery. Yahiro frowned. I don't understand what you mean. Heh, you don't? Then let me tell you. You should have died after you controlled that stray demon to attack us last time. Understand? Yahiro's expression changed. He had been discovered. A chill ran down his spine. Roy suddenly seemed much more menacing. Mio, Maria, and Yuki were stunned. So it was their classmate who had orchestrated the stray demon attack? They were furious. What do you want? Yahiro asked, already thinking of ways to escape. This wasn't a puppet. It was his real body. If he was killed here, he would truly die. Don't worry, you're still alive because you're still useful, Roy said with a smirk. Yahiro's expression turned grim. He was no match for Roy, and he didn't believe Roy had shown his true strength yet. What do you want me to do? Simple. Take us to Zul'jir, Roy replied calmly. Yahiro's eyes widened. So Roy was planning to confront Zul'jir. He actually had a grudge against Zul'jir. His adoptive parents, who were high-ranking demons serving the previous demon lord, had been killed by Zul'jir. All right, I agree. He would gladly help Roy deal with Zul'jir. Maria was overjoyed and threw her arms around Roy. Thank you, Oniai-chan. It's nothing, Roy chuckled, patting her head. Maria was even more grateful and determined to reward him properly tonight. They followed Yahiro to a castle. "This is Zulgir's current base," Yahiro explained. Roy sensed Zulgir's presence inside. "You can leave now," Roy said to Yahiro, then took Maria's hand and entered the castle. "Let me come too," Yahiro suddenly said, kneeling on one knee. "I also have a grudge against Zulgir. Could you let me witness his death?" Roy glanced at him. "Fine." Yahiro's face lit up with joy, and he followed them inside. "Who's there?" Just as Roy was about to push the door open, a girl with short white hair, tan skin, and revealing clothes blocked their path. "That's Zest, one of Zulgir's artificial demon's subordinates," Yahiro explained. "How dare you betray Master Zulgir, Yahiro Takegawa?" Zest snarled. Yahiro simply smirked without replying. Zest's shout alerted the other artificial beings within the castle. They swarmed out, mindless and hostile, and attacked. "Oni-chan, what do we do?" Mio and Maria asked nervously, seeing the approaching horde. "Don't worry, I've got this," Roy said with a smile, then snapped his fingers. Snap! The ground froze over, and all the artificial demons, except for Zest, were encased in ice. Shatter! The ice exploded, and the artificial demons vanished into dust. Yahiro's eyes widened in shock, and a cold sweat trickled down his forehead. As he had suspected, Roy was incredibly powerful. Mio, Maria, and Yuki were also stunned. "Did we teach Oni-chan that spell?" "No, we don't even know that spell," Mio whispered to Maria. "It doesn't matter. As long as it's Oni-chan, it's fine," Maria replied, shrugging. They couldn't explain it, but they trusted Roy implicitly. They had already entrusted everything to him. Chapter 229, Maria's mother, Sheila. The only surviving artificial demon, Zest, trembled with fear, her body frozen in place. Just then, bang! Zest was blasted away by a surge of magic, crashing into the wall. Damn it! Why were all my other artificial demons destroyed, but this defective one survived? Zulgir snarled, glaring at Zest, who was struggling to get up. He had always considered Zest to be a failure because she wasn't as obedient and fearless as the others. But her fear also meant she was no longer just a mindless weapon. She was becoming a real person. Zulgir-sama. Zest whimpered, confused and hurt. She was still too naive to understand the complexities of emotions. "Maria, what do you think you're doing? Do you want your mother to die?" Zulgir threatened, turning to Maria. He had chosen this castle as his base because it was actually the body of a magical beast. He used the beast's magical energy to create his artificial demons. And now, all his creations were destroyed, years of effort wasted. He was furious. He waved his hand, and an image of Maria's mother, trapped in a cage, appeared before them. With another wave of his hand, he could activate the trap within the cage and kill her. "Mother!" Maria cried out, her eyes filled with worry. She clung to Roy's arm, her hope for rescuing her mother resting entirely on him. "Maria's mother, you say? Let me see. There she is." Roy's senses swept through the entire castle, and he quickly located Maria's mother. He reached out with his magic. In the image, a sphere of magic enveloped Maria's mother, breaking her out of the cage and flying towards them. Zulgir's eyes bulged in shock. His carefully crafted trap had been effortlessly bypassed. "Damn it! What did you do?" he roared, finally realizing that Roy and the others were responsible. Roy simply smirked without replying. Just then, crash! The wall exploded, and Maria's mother, Sheila, flew towards them, encased in a sphere of magic. "Mom!" Maria cried, catching her mother in her arms. Maria, what's going on?" Sheila asked, confused and disoriented. "Mom, Oni-chan saved you," Maria explained, stepping back and gesturing towards Roy. "Oh? Is that so?" Sheila looked at Roy, then back at Maria. She could tell that her daughter had given herself to this man. She was curious about Roy and trusted her daughter's judgment. Roy, looking at Sheila, was surprised. He hadn't expected her to be so petite, even smaller than her daughter. She was like a lowly mother-in-law. "Who are you?" Zalgier demanded, fear creeping into his voice. This man had effortlessly rescued the hostage from afar. Such power was beyond even a demon lord. Dead men tell no tales. Roy replied with a chuckle, then casually reached out towards Zalgier with his magic. The air froze, and Zalgier unleashed his magic power to resist. But it was futile. He was instantly frozen solid. Crack! 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 Shatter! Zalgier's body exploded into icy dust. Yahiro Takegawa, watching from the sidelines, was stunned. Zalgier had been defeated so easily? Zalgier was a powerful demon, a trusted subordinate of the current demon lord. Even the demon lord himself might not be able to defeat him so effortlessly. "Alright, now that that's taken care of, let's get out of here," Roy said to the girls. They were inside the belly of a magical beast. Once Zalgier's magic faded, this place would revert to its original form. Okay. They left the castle. As soon as they left, the castle transformed into a massive, fleshy monster. This is bad. If this monster keeps devouring everything around it, the world will be destroyed. Mio exclaimed, her face pale with fear. Of course, she was exaggerating. Destroying the world wasn't that easy. Even if this monster could devour everything, it would take hundreds of years for it to consume the entire planet. But it was still a threat that needed to be dealt with. Freeze! Roy calmly raised his hand, and the monstrous creature was instantly encased in ice. Shatter! The ice exploded, and the monster vanished into thin air. Mio, Maria, and Yuki were no longer surprised by Roy's power. But Sheila was stunned. Such power was godlike. It seemed her daughter had made the right choice. Sheila smiled at Maria, offering her silent blessings. As the former demon lord's woman, Sheila hadn't had a happy life. Maria's birth had been an accident. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been captured and imprisoned by Zalgier after the previous demon lord's death. "Alright, everything's settled. Let's go home," Roy said with a smile. "I should take my leave now," Yahiro said, bowing deeply. Roy glanced at him, then waved him away. Although Yahiro had attacked them before, he had also indirectly helped Roy conquer the girls. And he had been helpful in this mission as well. So, Roy decided to let him go. Yahiro quickly left. Roy and the girls returned home. Meanwhile, news of Zalgier's death spread throughout the factions. The demons, gods, and even the hero factions were all intrigued by the mysterious figure who had killed a demon cadre. What a pity. I was hoping to have those two girls as my daughters-in-law, but someone beat me to it, a bespectacled man with a gentle demeanor muttered as he stood in a desolate wasteland filled with monsters. This was Jin Tuju, the father of the protagonist, Basara Tuju, and a legendary hero known as the God of War. It was said that the previous demon lord, Mio's father, had ended the war between the demons and the heroes because of Jin Tuju. Jin checked the message on his phone, then lit a cigarette and chuckled. A powerful being has appeared. Let's see if you're human or demon. He left the wasteland and went to visit his son, who was living an ordinary life. Jin sighed. Perhaps this peaceful life was the best for his son after all. Meanwhile, when Roy returned home with Mio and the others, he was surprised to find Zest following them. "Master." Zest knelt before Roy with an expression of absolute loyalty. Roy was stunned. Why was she suddenly pledging her allegiance to him? "I've been abandoned, and you didn't kill me. So, naturally, you're my new master now," Zest explained, her head lowered respectfully. As an artificial being, she didn't understand much about the world. But she knew that Roy was her new master. Mio and Maria exchanged surprised glances. They hadn't expected her to become Roy's servant. Oniai-chan, I think you should accept her. After all, a powerful being like you needs someone to attend to your needs, Maria said with a sly grin. Roy's lips twitched. Maria was good. She knew how to appeal to a man's desires. And honestly, Zest was quite attractive. Who wouldn't want such a loyal and beautiful girl by their side? Ahem, very well. I accept your allegiance, Roy declared. Mio and Yuki were about to protest, but Roy had already made his decision. Thank you, Master. Zest exclaimed, overjoyed. That night, to celebrate Maria's reunion with her mother in Zest's addition to the family, Maria and Sheila prepared a feast. Roy, looking at the similar-looking mother and daughter, had a naughty thought. But he kept it to himself for now. Maria certainly lived up to her promise that night, using all sorts of techniques to please Roy. Even Mio couldn't help but blush. Sheila, in her room, couldn't sleep. The next day, Roy went to school with Mio and Yuki. Yahiro wasn't there. It seemed the new demon lord was taking the task of monitoring Mio seriously. He wouldn't send anyone else until he knew Roy's true identity. Roy had one last target, Chisato Hasegawa, the school nurse. She had come to the human world with her powers sealed to help Basara Toju control his unique abilities. This made things a bit tricky. Lost in thought, Roy arrived at the nurse's office. A mature and beautiful woman was busy working inside. Chapter 230, Chisato Hasegawa. Returning to DxD Universe. Hello there, Hasegawa-sensei, Roy greeted Chisato with a smile. Chisato turned around, surprised to see Roy. Roy-san, are you feeling unwell? She asked, trying to maintain her composure. She wondered why he was here. This was the nurse's office. I'm curious as Goddess of Furia, why are you here? Roy asked with a smirk. What? Chisato's eyes widened in shock. Her true identity was a closely guarded secret. How did he know? Who are you? She demanded, her brow furrowed. I'm the god who will rule this world, Roy declared half-jokingly. Chisato scoffed. She didn't believe him. Then just forget about who I am, Roy said with a shrug. What's your purpose in finding me? Chisato pressed. She didn't believe Roy had exposed her identity without a reason. Roy smirked. I want you to become my servant. As a high-ranking goddess, Chisato's strength was at least Mao class. Servant? Are you a demon? Chisato asked, finally understanding his intentions. Only demons collected servants. That's right, Roy confirmed with a nod. Chisato was confused. She didn't recognize Roy as any of the known demons. Roy simply smiled without explaining. So, what do you say, Hasegawa-sensei? Will you accept? No, I won't, Chisato refused firmly. She had come to this world with her powers sealed to help Basara Toju, the protagonist, control his powers. She wouldn't become anyone's servant. Oh? Not even if that boy you care about dies? Roy asked with a sly grin. He waved his hand, and an image of Basara Toju appeared beside them. Chisato's eyes widened in shock. How did he know about Basara? And he was using Basara to threaten her? That boy is your cousin's son, right? You care about him deeply. You even came here for him, Roy explained. Chisato was even more shocked. He knew everything. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Roy approached her with a predatory smile. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you. He looked like a villain. And Roy had to admit, it was fun to play the villain sometimes. Chisato's body trembled, but she quickly regained her composure. He's protected by the god of war. I don't know who you are, but you're no match for him. You mean Jin Toju? Roy chuckled, then turned towards a figure hiding nearby. Speak of the devil, he's here. Let's see what the god of war is capable of. He snapped his fingers, and the three of them were transported to the subspace. Jean Tuju was disoriented for a moment, then quickly realized what had happened. "I've been discovered," he muttered, taking off his glasses, cleaning them, and putting them back on. He examined Roy carefully. Roy's power was strange. He didn't seem that strong, but Jean could sense a hidden threat. Chisato was shocked again. They had been transported to the subspace in an instant, and the god of war had been nearby all along. "Jean Tuju, what are you doing here?" Roy asked curiously. He had just used Jin's son as a threat, and Jean had appeared immediately. "What a coincidence." I just heard about a powerful individual and came to see for myself," Jean replied with a casual laugh. "So it was a coincidence." Roy nodded. "In that case, let's fight." "Oh?" Now it was Jin's turn to be curious. Roy had challenged him after revealing his identity and even asked him to attack first. This was either a sign of foolishness or immense confidence. Jean naturally assumed it was the latter. He drew his sword and said with a smile, "Then I'll show you what I can do." He charged towards Roy and swung his sword. But to his and Chisato's surprise, Roy simply raised 2 fingers. Was he trying to block his attack with just 2 fingers? Jean felt insulted. Then, they were both stunned. Roy's 2 fingers effortlessly caught Jin's blade. Jean Tuju was the god of war, even stronger than the previous demon lord. And his attack had been blocked by 2 fingers? It was unbelievable, even though Jean wasn't using his full strength. "Tuju-san, underestimating your opponent can be dangerous," Roy said with a smirk, then unleashed a gust of wind that sent Jean flying backwards. Jean landed roughly on the ground, his expression turning serious. It seems I have to get serious now," he said, a playful grin returning to his face. He still hadn't realized how outmatched he was. He unleashed his full power and swung his sword again. This attack was several times faster and stronger than the previous one. But even with his full strength, he was only at the super devil level, far weaker than Roy. Roy once again caught his sword with 2 fingers, and Jin's eyes widened in shock. Even Chisato was stunned. Jean Tuju was the legendary god of war. No one had ever blocked his attacks this effortlessly. And Roy looked like he was playing with a child. Roy casually tossed Jean and his sword aside, then yawned. "This is so boring," he muttered. He dispelled the subspace, and they returned to reality. Jean was frustrated. He had been defeated so thoroughly. This man's power was horrifying. But seeing that Roy had brought them back to the real world instead of killing him, he decided not to push his luck. He simply turned and left. "So, Hasegawa-sensei, will you submit to me?" Roy asked, glancing at Chisato. Chisato hesitated for a moment, then sighed in defeat. She couldn't resist him, especially with her powers sealed. "I accept. But you must promise not to harm Basara," she said. "No problem." "I have no interest in him," Roy replied with a wave of his hand. He sat down on the office chair in the nurse's office and beckoned Chisato over. Chisato obediently knelt before him and did as he pleased. Roy enjoyed playing the villain for a bit. But now that he had settled things here, it was time to return home. But before that, he had one more thing to do: help Mio cause some chaos in the demon realm. He vaguely remembered that Mio's father, the previous demon lord, wasn't actually dead. But it didn't matter. The previous demon lord wasn't a good person anyway. Back at the mansion, Roy told the girls about his plan to help Mio reclaim the demon lord's throne. But Mio hesitated. She was happy with her current life. She didn't want to return to the demon realm and become the demon lord. Maria was also hesitant. She didn't want to go back to the demon realm either. With no place for them there, she was reluctant to return. "I know what you're worried about." "Don't worry, leave everything to me," Roy reassured them, patting their heads gently. "Okay." Mio and Maria trusted him. That night, Roy turned his attention to Sheila. He shared his plan with Maria. Maria was shocked. How could he ask her to help him conquer her own mother? But after a moment of hesitation, she agreed. She was the type of person who would do anything for the one she loved. And so, Roy enjoyed another rewarding experience. He was quite proud of himself for fulfilling such a bold fantasy. After enjoying a few days of peaceful domestic bliss, Roy took Mio, Maria, Sheila, Yuki, Kurumi, Chisato, and Zest to the demon realm. With a display of his aura, he effortlessly subdued the current demon lord. Then, after defeating a few rebellious demon cadres, he easily claimed the demon lord's throne. But the throne meant nothing to him. He wasn't going to leave Mio here to rule the demon realm. He glanced at Yahiro Takigawa and decided to give him the throne. Ignoring the reactions of the other demons, he left the world of Shinmai no Testament with Mio, Maria, Sheila, Yuki, Kurumi, Chisato, and Zest. They returned to the world of Highschool DxD. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.